Okay, so let's bring back.
Let's just wait for a few people to join.
So we're just waiting for a few people to join.
Guys, thanks for bearing with us and thanks for coming back to us. You know, we've got plenty to talk about. So the half hour extended to an hour. We can see that you're joining us. So thank you so much for staying with us. Do you want to bring Elroy back?
Yeah, I'll bring Elroy back. Serena, if you can just pin the actual topic of our conversation, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. And there is Elroy. Oops. Yeah. There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys, and thank you for bearing with us. This is how it is for us at this present moment.
We've got Elroy back.
Oh, we've got Elroy back. Hi.
Hiya. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. And no delay either. So it's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. So as you were saying, in regards to your position in terms of working in an academy, you're a headmaster, head teacher. And I mean, how do you feel, Elroy, in regards to what we have all witnessed with George Floyd? What's your views? How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, fair enough. Can I just say, first of all, was it Biggs who was on before?
Yes.
I could have listened to him talk for around 4 hours.
Yes,
Trust me.
listen, that's what we're having fun.
Biggs, we hope you're watching, Biggs.
Really inspiring, and I think like saying lots of truths that I think need to be told as well, which was quite empowering, hopefully for people who are listening as well. Yeah, so like I said at the end of the last live, so I'm a head teacher in West London. I moved to the UK 13 years ago, roughly, and I've worked in education throughout that time. And I think coming from, you know, what's largely a very homogenous country in the case of Ireland, where, you know, the first person that I spoke to who wasn't white was probably when I went to university. So I'm originally from the Irish travelling community. So we wouldn't really have met anyone who wasn't even, you know, from the travelling community to begin with. And I think that coming over here, I was absolutely shocked just at how unequal people are treated, particularly people from the black community. So one of my first teaching jobs was in Battersea, and I was just astounded at just the level of contempt, if I'm going to be honest, that some of my colleagues who had worked in the school for years, like donkey's years, were having towards students. And it was like largely, you know, a school with a very large black community, and the kids were treated with, I'd say, thinly disguised at best contempt by some older staff. And that to me was just kind of it did make my skin crawl, if I'm going to be honest. And I left the school predominantly for that reason, because I didn't want to be part of what could only be described as kind of an insidious culture in the school. You know, I went back and I worked in South London later as a senior leader, and I think, you know, in Mitcham and as a head teacher. And although I kind of knew that there's a lot of inequality and there's a lot of like lack of opportunity, and well, lack of opportunity is the wrong term, lack of equality for young black people, I think I wasn't quite prepared.
I think it's, sorry, Elroy, I think just to go back to the lack of opportunity, I think there is a lack of opportunity, but what would be more a fitting description is actually a lack of access to opportunity.
Yeah.
Or
really,
barriers of access to opportunity. So sorry.
Really, no, it's a really good clarification. So I was a head teacher of a school called City Heights, and I thought the name was actually quite depressing, because you could see the city and you could see all those big shining buildings in the distance, and actually it may as well have been another continent away for, you know, the lack of access to those opportunities in the city, etc. And what highlighted to me, being a head teacher there, was I didn't actually witness such a level of oppression by a police force ever. And like, I'm from the travelling community at home, so like at home we would have had lots of oppression from the police, because the travellers are not seen as a particularly great group of people in society in Ireland. But nothing prepared me for the level of trauma that black people face from the police force in the UK, to the point that I actually stopped calling the police for things at my school, because actually I just thought it was not necessary, and it actually did more harm than good. Because actually, yeah, I have to say, it probably did end my faith in any element of the police system, to the point that now if I see the police, I just think, police, wish. Yeah, I don't know. But I think, you know, like your comment or your question earlier on was, what do I think about what's been happening? Like, I can't even begin to, I'm not going to like sit here and pretend that I can even put into words how the black community must be feeling, because, you know, I can try and empathize, but I can't come anywhere close to how people must be feeling. It is bewildering. But I think the key thing is that, like, this is not black people alone's fight, if I'm going to be completely honest. Because if you sit silent, or you kind of make, you know, empty comments and say, oh, it's not awful what's happening, then you're complicit. You're part of the problem. Because actually, this is such a large-scale level of persecution, and that's essentially what it is. It is persecution, that everybody needs to stand up and be counted. And we can't pretend that we don't have privilege as, you know, white people, or as even, like, I know other people from other ethnic backgrounds still have, you know, some oppression, etc. But actually, let's be clear, it's nothing. It pales in comparison to the oppression faced by the black community. And I think that we have to stand up and know, first of all, and educate people about what white privilege means, and actually then do our part to actually change things. And it starts with education, as you said a number of times, Gaz. Like, you know, if you look at the curriculum in schools, everything's written by dead white people. Well, you know, there might be one or two tokenistic poems thrown in there to kind of say, oh yeah, it's not completely, you know, white-centric or whitewashed, whatever the correct political term is, but it's wrong. It's wrong. And like, I think, I mean, being able to,
you know, sorry, I just want to actually pick up on that point, because you talk about the curriculum, and this is something that somebody had actually mentioned who's watching. When is it that the history, and I don't want to call it black history, because actually it's British history. Real, true, transparent British history, that they were the colonizers. They went and you know, pillaged a number of countries around the world and enslaved people. This is part of British history. This is part of the empire's history. You know, it's not being taught as a staple in schools. So I mean, I don't know what you're in the school system, and you will have conversations around that. That's a massive place that we need to start. But tell us, is there an appetite? What's it like in the schools? Are people now talking about having the full transparency of British history, that includes slavery and that includes colonialism, being taught in schools?
Hand on heart, like, there's tokenistic conversations about it, but the national curriculum, it still glorifies, you know, the empire, if you will. And that idea of populism that is, you know, more rampant, particularly with the current iteration of the Conservative Party, is, you know, essentially intent on not talking truths around the actual huge damage that the British Empire has done to so many countries. Like, they don't learn about the pillaging of Africa. They don't learn about, you know, the scramble for Africa and carving up nations. They don't learn about the slave. Well, there's like some history of the slave trade, but like nowhere near as depth as it should be. You know, it's all about glorifying, you know, who really gives a damn, or like a shit, if I'm going to be honest, about how many wives King Henry had. Actually, you know, it's not about that. It's about knowing the truth of history. And no wonder there's an identity crisis with, you know, particularly black teenagers growing up kind of feeling like they're misplaced within society when they don't even learn about, you know, the history of their countries and the glory of their countries. And there's a great poem that's probably one of the only, you know, positive things of the prescribed curriculum, if I'm going to be frank, in English, which is Checking Out My History by John Agard. And actually it talks about how, you know, we teach kids about fucking dead kings and queens, but actually don't teach them about anybody who is from any black community or like black, you know, people in history who've made significant change, and it's wrong. So yes, I think, you know, from my perspective as a head, there is so much to be done with curriculum. And it is about educating. It is about, you know, first of all, saying what white privilege is. And, you know, we
well,
have
what
to...
is it? Break it down to us from a white person's point of view, Elroy, please.
It's understanding that, you know, just purely by the colour of your skin, you get an easier ride in life. And if I'm going to boil it down really simply, you know, I see colleagues who are black, who are Indian, who are like all other, you know, ethnic backgrounds, and they don't need to work quite as hard or quite as, you know, be as determined to get ahead in life. Like, and it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And yet, when colleagues do, you know, move upwards or get promotions, who are like black, etc., then yeah, they do eventually have to work super hard and prove themselves even more, which is wrong. And even when they get there, it's precarious. It's a case of they could be knocked down at any minute, you know, or even a tiny incident to a white person could become career-ending for a black person. That's wrong. It's not the same level of equal playing, I suppose, and that's challenging.
Someone's asked, do you have any black teachers on your SLT, on your senior leadership team?
Yeah, so I've got one lady at the moment who's on my senior team. It's quite a diverse senior team.
Fantastic. Somebody else has said more people need to hear what you're saying because you are coming forth with refreshing honesty and just putting yourself out there. As you know, as a white man, you are saying what we know is happening, but you're saying it from the other side of the coin. So we really thank you and you know, and we really appreciate that. But I'm just going to delve a little bit deeper. You know, when you have seen certain inequalities, have you addressed them? If you see it in you know, in the workplace, if you see it amongst your kids, have you addressed it?
Absolutely. So you have to challenge it. Like even if it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with somebody, even if that person is above you in an organization, you have to call it out and call it for what it is. It's racism, pure and simple. You know, I'm not unashamed to say that as a head teacher, you know, I was threatened to be brought down to the station by the police for standing up for two of my kids who had done absolutely nothing wrong. And with the best will in the world, it is wrong that actually they didn't even do that in the end, because I'm a white man. And actually, if I had been a black man, I have no doubt in my mind I would have been brought down to Brixton Police Station. But I wasn't, because of white privilege. And that's essentially the key thing. And I think it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I cannot even pretend that I fully know the full extent of the privilege of being white. But actually, it's about continuing to be educated on it. And it's about standing back and knowing that you're not the voice of authority as a white person on the oppression that black people feel. You can do all that you can to support the fight, but actually it's about knowing, in essence, your place, because you don't experience that oppression. So you have to listen to those that do, and you have to support them, and you have to support them and give them a voice. And if you don't do that, then in essence, you're part of the problem.
So in terms of like what we've been discussing, because obviously someone's Access UK has made a valid point, and I wanted to kind of stress on it. When we look at Black history, we always see it from slavery. We need to talk about before slavery, about us as Black people. And these are the things, I mean, you know, you talk about white privileges, but I think even with that, in terms of the curriculum, isn't it a way that, you know, people like yourself, white people, that can really push for this education to be put on the curriculum so that we all have an equal kind of chance to understand, to learn about history? Because the truth be told, when I was going to school, I didn't learn about Black history. I didn't learn about slavery. I didn't, you know, there were certain things that was mentioned, but it wasn't about my history. It wasn't about me as a Black woman. So I can only imagine what these young people are going through right now, and things are still has not changed. So I just want to know, what is it that you guys can do, white people can do, using your privilege to make the change within the educational system?
Make a change full stop.
Just make a change full stop. Because I just feel that, you know, there needs to be some kind of action here.
I think your comment is really, you know, quite true in the sense that, you know, when I was growing up, we learned about in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, you learn about the damage that the British Empire did to our country, and, you know, what they did to Irish people and how they made them second-class citizens. But if you're not being taught that as a black person in the UK, and you're not being taught about the damage the British Empire has done to Africa, to the Caribbean, to like lots of, you know, parts of the world, then you're never going to fully know your truth in your history and your heritage, and that's wrong. So it is about instigating change, and as a head, you know, reviewing the curriculum. And, you know, one of the good things about the inspectors Ofsted is that there now is a focus on curriculum, and schools now have a bit more freedom. But it's about actually, you know, utilising that freedom to do something different, to teach about the Haitian Revolution, to teach about, you know, the kingdoms that existed in Africa, you know, to teach about, you know, great people within history. And actually it's about making sure that it's not white people deciding what is black history and what black history should be taught, but actually getting, you know, black people and other people from other ethnic backgrounds to also contribute about what they feel should be taught, because it's so important.
Yeah. You just said something actually that really spoke to me. You said teaching people about great people in history. You know, it's not teaching people about great black people in history, it's teaching people about great people in history, full stop. And undoubtedly that includes many black people across the centuries, generations and generations ago. I think, you know, somebody else has said it's as important for everybody in the world to understand black and African history as it is for black and African people. You know, why did I go to school and learn about the Jews? Well, actually, regardless of what you think about the Holocaust and what happened, it's important to understand these stories, because we as people need to understand that there was oppression in the world, and that we need to not go back to that place. Just like with slavery, you know, just like with any other thing that happens. But the important thing is that African history is so important for the world, not just for Africans, for the world. That is where things started, you know?
For everybody. It's for everybody. And then you have an understanding. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it will stop the division and the kind of mindset that people have against us as black people. You know, so when you do see that young boy walking down, maybe with him and his mate, no, he's not in a gang. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's just walking down the road with his mate. Do you get what I'm saying? It would just take away those, the negative vision that, you know, not even vision, but just the negativity of how these people have a view of us as black people. And like you said, you know, it is the fair. Straight up, it's fair. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And we need to address the fear that white people have against us as black people.
But equally though, Kaz, it's wrong that actually you should have to do that, if I'm going to be honest. It's wrong that you should have to do something about the fear that white people have against black people for no reason. Like, that shouldn't be the case. So it goes back to education from the early days of, you know, when we have books in primary school or in nursery or whatever, like, they don't teach about diversity. They don't teach about, you know, the great things that black people have done, and like everybody has done, like from other ethnic backgrounds as well. So it's absolutely from an early age about education, because actually it shouldn't be about black people having to make white people feel more comfortable. That's wrong. I don't know how to dress that up in a better way. Like, it's wrong.
You just said that perfectly, because that's what we have been talking about. You summed it up perfectly, and this happens in every aspect and area of our life. Walking down the street, going into work, being in a meeting at work, and trying to deliver your point, and always having to second guess and kind of frame in your mind how you're going to say something so that you don't offend, or so that you don't make somebody feel uncomfortable. I saw a video today of a black man talking on the issues, as many people have been, and he said that he realized after 62 years of being on this earth, he's realized that he's constantly, and we would say this in Jamaican patois, constantly smalling up himself, smalling up himself to fit in, to make those people not feel comfortable. And you're absolutely right. It's wrong. We are at fault too. I have to take accountability for my own actions and say, do you know what? And I have been doing it. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be somebody who you are comfortable with just because you've got a problem. I need to show up to work and be able to be authentically
and be yourself.
Me.
That's right.
And this is a massive issue.
And this is the problem in the workplaces, not even just in education, just overall. Do you know what I mean? You know, there's, like you said about white privilege, is where you cannot even just be your true authentic self. Do you understand what I'm saying? And even when you are doing that, you get dismissed embarrassingly in front of people. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then they want to look at you like to say, well, why are you responding in that way? Well, you just embarrassed me. So of course I'm going to respond, but we have to learn to play a game. I don't see why I should be playing any games with anybody.
But it's not a game.
But this is what I'm saying. But what we have been told, you need to learn to play the game.
Kaz, the only time I've ever heard, like, you know, when somebody has a disagreement with somebody in like a shop or a bank or, you know, a business or something like that, the only time I ever hear someone being told, oh, could you keep your voice down, could you stop being aggressive, is when it's a black person. And like, they're not, they're just getting their point across. Like,
right.
That's not being aggressive.
But you're right. It's not aggressive. It's how. Why should we change how we are because you feel uncomfortable? This is the whole point. You know, it's interesting, Elroy. I didn't know this before you came on. So Kaz just said to me, you're a headmaster of a secondary school, Crest Academy. She met you at Crest Academy.
Yeah,
and you both worked together. But it's interesting that you mentioned, first of all, obviously you're of Irish descent. You're still white, so I'm not gonna say that you're not white, but you're of Irish descent. You guys have experienced a different history and experienced some oppression. But to add to that category, you're from a traveller background, and I know that travellers have faced tremendous oppression in this country in particular, in the UK in particular. Yes, you may not be able to distinguish a traveller by the colour of their skin, but when they open their mouth, believe me, I grew up in northwest London. We had a traveller just across the fence. We had a traveller site, you know. So just by you guys opening your mouth, you know. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, thank you for your honesty and thank you for coming on. I would suggest that you probably have a bit more of an insight, given that you're from an Irish background and given that you're from a traveller background as well. You would have faced some of those oppressions yourself and understand what it feels like. But what I really find refreshing about you is that not only do you see what's happening, you are prepared to stand out against what's happening, and you're prepared to fully talk about and accept what's happening, and you're not running from it. You're not trying to pretend, oh no, why is this a risk?
You know, this doesn't happen here. The fact that you even said when you first started working in the education sector and you saw what was going on, you left. Do you understand what I'm saying? You weren't willing to be a part of that. How much of us is willing to take those actions? I'm not saying that leaving is the best way, but you just didn't want to be a part of that. And, you know, there's so many individuals, white people, that will just stay there and just turn a blind eye. They don't really care. Or they're even creating a situation and making it even worse for that woman or that man that they know is qualified to be in that position, but yet they're getting a position and you ain't even done shit and you have a bare sickness and all of this kind of bullshit. But yet that woman that black woman that's been taught to work twice as hard can't get that role.
Do you know what killed me in that school? There was this huge issue around kids' hair and kids not being allowed to have cornrows and not being allowed to have dreads. And I'm not being funny. Like, who gives a fuck what someone's hair is like? Like, if that is part of how somebody wants to wear their hair and that's part of their identity, then that's what it is. So, like, even little tiny things like that contribute, even if it's, you know, people are so ignorant that they don't know the impact that has, that's still suppressing somebody's identity. It's still suppressing.
It is. And it's what we refer to as microaggressions. Microaggressions that happen every day in everywhere you go, whether you go in the shop, like Big said, and you're being followed, whether you get on a train and somebody gives you a funny look or moves away from you, whether you're walking down the street and somebody you can tell is uncomfortable, in the workplace in particular, these microaggressions happen all the time. So for example, you spoke about black kids not being able to have dreadlocks. How ridiculous is that? Is it going to stop that? Is the dreadlock going to block the learning process and block the information penetrating their brain? Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
It happened with in my family, with my brother growing up. My father used to cut my brother's hair. Yeah, with his blade, used to cut my brother's hair. My brother went to school in Harrow, and I'm going to say the school, my brother went to Salvatorian College in Harrow. The amount of times, probably 3 or 4 occasions, that my dad has cut his hair low, because that's what we do. We cut our hair low. My dad has cut my brother's hair. He's gone into school, and the school have suspended him, removed him from his learning because his father gave him a haircut. Let's just keep it simple and real. What has it got to do with anything, you know? So I'm glad you pointed that out, because this is real.
But it's a power thing, and it's wrong, because actually, what are you benefiting from that power? You're just on some fucking power trip that's going to lead you nowhere, but actually is going to have untold damage to somebody else, and it's just wrong. But I think, you were asking what can we do about it. It's about educating other people. It's about calling it out when you see it in your family, as Big said to somebody else. It's about not voting for these clowns who run our country, who don't even disguise the fact that they, think they're superior to everybody else. And, it's even little things. If you think from a political perspective, like, I'm not massively political. Perhaps I should be, but I just think they're all...
Someone said you should be a politician, actually, so...
Take it, Elroy.
Like, if you look at Dominic Cummings, and he's able to travel like 560 miles or something to Durham, and he gets away with it because he's white, but actually, Diane Abbott was taken apart because she had a tinny on a train. Like,
perfect.
It doesn't...
Perfect.
I think that's the best example of how, when people say, oh, the suppression is in America with the riots, etc. No, it's not. It's here as well. And yeah, it might be more amplified to an extent in the America at the moment. But actually, Mark Duggan, back in, when was that, 2010, 2011?
11.
Like, it wasn't a whole million miles away from what's happening now in America. And actually, yet it's been swept back under the rug, and nothing has happened. Nothing has changed at all. So, we can say, oh, it's over there and it's America, and America's so divided. And don't get me wrong, there's huge fucking problems in the South. I worked when I was a student for a summer in Alabama, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life, because they didn't even try and hide the racism. And there is huge issues, deep-rooted issues, not helped by having an absolute out-and-out racist in the White House. But actually, we're not a million miles away from that over here. And the only way we can change that, particularly as white people as well, and help black people to, turn the tide, is by not voting for these shower of fuckers, pardon my language, who promote these policies. And Biggs talked about, these Hackney and Dalston creative types who talk about, bigging up kind of black culture and supporting equality. And then they go back to the Cotswolds, to the parents who vote for the Tories. Yeah, 100% that's 100% part of the problem.
We really need more people like yourself to be vocal and speak out and just talk it like it is, and call it out when it needs to be called out, and not be afraid anymore. We as people are not to be feared. There seems to be this big fear, especially among those with white privilege, around the word racism. Actually, instead of jumping to the defense, just like you have done, really just having an open dialogue. So we are going to leave you shortly, but what I would like, you've mentioned a couple of things that people can do, but just for the average person, the average white person, for example, watching this, please could you provide 1 or 2 tangible things that person can do to help us make this shift and make this change?
I would say call it out when you see it, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and no matter what position it puts you in. I have moved on members of staff in my current school when I joined who had what I can only describe as bigoted views towards people who were black, or people who were Indian, or people who were from other backgrounds. You have to move them on. Like, there's no hiding place for it. So that's one. Number 2, educate your own children. And even as a white person, like, making sure that you are educating your own kids about, you're giving them books that are representative of diversity, that you're not just giving them books with white princesses in them, but actually you're teaching them about other histories and other cultures as well. Because if you don't do that, nothing changes, and actually you're in your own little silo. I think, definitely putting your money where your mouth is, and you know, I'm not going to pretend that I've changed everything that needs to change in my school. There's so much more that I need to change. And actually, am I going to think that I have all the answers? No. Do I think that Claudinia, who's on my senior leadership team, who is from Jamaica, has a better insight into what needs to change? Yeah, 100%. So actually being open and knowing that you don't have the answers and you can't pretend to have the answers, because that in itself is white privilege, thinking that you know best when you don't, actually. And 100% not voting for a shower of racists to run our country. Like, it makes me ashamed to live in this country sometimes when I see the utter crap that goes on. And taking a stand for people that you don't even know, like a stranger in a street, or challenging when somebody is treated, you know, in a bank in NatWest, maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago, a woman whose card was swallowed by the machine being dismissed to one side because she was black. And actually then when she got a bit agitated about the situation, being told, ma'am, keep your voice down. No, sorry, ma'am's not, you know, doesn't need to keep her voice down. She's been waiting for three people have gone by, and you know, and no, I won't now keep my voice down as a white man. I'll say, no, serve the lady, please. The lady's been waiting. Like, stand up for it and call it out where it happens, and keep fighting. Because you can't just sit back, and you can't just keep quiet, and you can't just kind of say, oh, isn't that awful, and then turn over the channel on the news. Nah, you need to do something about it, like.
Yeah. Elroy, thank you. Elroy, listen, we really salute you for just even coming on and just sharing, you know, what you've experienced and giving those valuable tips. And I definitely like about, in terms of just calling it out, you know, just call it out. We need to, that's the only way we're going to have to shift. You know, we have to really just stick up. Do you know what I mean? So thank you so much. But we're going to let you go, because obviously we are mindful of time, and we want to allow other people to be able to request themselves on who also wants to be part of the conversation as well. So thank you so much.
Can I say one final quick thing? One thing that I really think needs to be promoted more is, like, what's been going on in America has affected black people in an untold way.
We're losing you.
There is trauma attached to what they see. And that, I think employers need to be aware of that. And employers need to ask, you know, black people in their workplaces, in their schools, are you okay? And if you're not okay, that's fine.
Come on.
Because actually you need to...
Elroy, here I will do high five, yeah? Right. That just there. And you know what was so key with what you said? Because I had a meeting, and I couldn't, that day when it all happened, I was so, like, mentally, I couldn't even focus. Do you understand what I'm saying? Nobody, not one person said, Kaz, are you all right? How are you getting on today? No one was interested, because it's not their problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? And still up to this very day and age, nobody, even my workplace, has even asked, how are you guys doing over there? Do you understand? Because it's not a concern for them.
Well, it's not seen as a problem. It's seen as we are just supposed to carry on. So, Elroy, thank you for you just dropped a gem right there, because I had a conversation with my sister about this just yesterday, and we were saying yesterday, or maybe a few days ago, I can't remember, but we were saying we are expected. Imagine if it was a lockdown. I'd be expected to go into my office and just carry on like normal. Nobody's going to ask me, am I okay? Nobody's going to think about the trauma. And I, even in myself, would go in and probably carry on like normal. And what's even worse is that because the conversation is uncomfortable for some, that conversation isn't going to happen in the workplace. So I may want to talk about it, but I feel like I can't, because going back to the smalling up myself and not wanting to make people feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
So I'm not going to have that conversation. So Elroy,
thank you.
Thank you so much. You have really added value to this conversation. Guys, please, you know, there are people out there like Elroy who do stand in solidarity and want to take responsibility for us all to fight this persistent injustice in our societies. So, Elroy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, you take care. Right, so as we said, conversation, we've heard from Biggs, we've heard from Elroy, you know, and there's been a lot of debate and conversation. We really do just want to kind of bring it back to the fact that we are trying to talk about and find solutions to how we can move forward as people, as humanity, to make sure that these atrocities are ended once and for all. Like we said, we all have a responsibility. So now we just want to open up to you guys. Anybody who's watching right now, we've been following your comments. You know, there have been so many comments that we haven't been able to speak on all of them. But if any of you watching right now want to join our live, please send us a request now, or just let us know, because we'll request you, because we know that your request scrolls up. So just let us know now, and we will request you.
Yeah.
Kaz, you work with Elroy. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
what an amazing guy.
You know something? It's so ironic because when I met Elroy, I started. Oh,
you've got to.
Okay, so when I started working at Crest Academy, I mean, I never worked in the education system whatsoever. When I got there, he was the first person.
It's Nyla.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna bring in Nyla. It's Nyla.
Hi.
Hello. Oh my gosh, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Tell us your name, Nyla, and how old you are.
Okay, so my name's Nyla, and I'm 14 years old.
And what would you like to say?
I just wanted to start with it's really horrible to see what has happened within the past week. The fact that a black man was killed in cold blood and it continuously happens is disgusting. And I just don't feel it's appropriate for him to get away with it. I believe his name is Derek Chauvin or Siobhan or something like that. It's really hurtful. And I feel that whatever...
How do you actually... I want to hear from you as a young person, a young black female. How do you feel?
Just say it as it is.
I've cried a few times. I'm not gonna like almost dumb it down, but it almost makes you feel like you're not safe wherever you go. Like a lot of us children, you watch YouTube with things like that, and you see these big dreams that people have and things, and people always saying, oh, America's this and America's that. And as a young person, you instantly just want to, oh, I want to go to America, I want to go to New York, I want to do this and I want to do that. And then for almost to backtrack on yourself and almost just see the fact that it's almost like, well, I can't go there because if I get stopped, there's a possibility of me not coming home to my mum tomorrow, or there's a possibility of me not seeing my family ever again. Like, it's like beyond.
You play basketball, don't you? And I know that.
I used to.
And I know that for someone who's big into basketball, obviously the sights are going to be on the US, right? Yeah.
And like even because I do. My school is a performing arts school around where Elroy's school is. I feel like with acting, it's so much easier to get into acting if you're in America, or it's so much more accessible because obviously we've been shown that.
You mean with black skin?
Yeah.
With black skin of colour. Yeah.
Go to Hollywood and you'll make it. And you'll break through like Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish and things along those lines. And you see those positive influences, those very few positive, like not very few well shown positive influences. You just see that and you just think, wow, if they can do it, I'm gonna do it. And you do get motivated by them. You say, that's my motivation. And the good people that you do see, obviously, we're very as black people, we're very widely shown in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
You won't necessarily hear of like high-end black doctors. I'm not saying it doesn't happen because it really does, but if you see yourself in the industry and there's loads and loads of successful black people in that industry, a lot of the time you're going to want to lead there. And it's almost as if like, well, because they're doing it and I've got a talent, I'm going to pursue the exact same thing that they're doing. And for that for an organization that's supposed to protect you and make you feel at ease if there's something that's going wrong and there's a criminal around or something along those lines. It's like, I would rather just face what the criminal's going to do than you to come and think instantly I'm the criminal. Or this, say like there's a white woman and a white man or something, and they're the ones that's been held up, or they're the ones that are doing the injustice. They're instantly going to go to the white man and the white woman and say, is everything all right, ma'am? Is everything okay? I'm not going to, like, I've seen police brutality over here. Like, there's a boy that was arrested close to my school, and I watched it, and the police were being like so unnecessarily rough on him. With a stop and search, you don't have to give your name. You don't have to give any information about yourself. They were ensuring that he gave information and being so tight in the handcuffs and things along those lines. So it happens over here. And yes, the UK is just America without guns, to be quite frank. It really,
and this is a 14-year-old.
Talk it. Listen, you are the next generation, you know. We give thanks for young people like you, and it saddens both Kaz and I to hear that you've got all of these ambitions and dreams, and you know that America would probably provide that for you in terms of having greater access to opportunity. Yeah, but given the systemic racism that exists, the way that the structure is set up, you fear going there. I want to change that for you and young people like you. There should be no fear in going there, Nye. You should be able to go there and to go and chase and pursue your dreams. Absolutely. And I don't want you to feel that's the way that it's going to be forever. But this is why we're having this conversation. We need to change that. So from a young perspective, what I'd like to ask you from a young person's point of view is, what can you do? Because I just want to make clear, this is something that Kaz and I have spoken about, but we can, in this situation, we can feel overwhelmed to have all the answers. We're not going to have all the answers. Yeah. We can't fix the big picture problem, but we can do things, each one of us, to make a change that will be collective change. So what can young people do?
Well, I think there's a constant thing going around that there will be change, but it won't happen in our lifetime, because I believe there's a scripture in the Bible that said we will rise, or the oppressed will rise. Now, personally for me, I don't necessarily follow the Christian belief purely because I feel like it was fed by white racists and the slave masters, so that they could take our land and enjoy all our riches. So that's one of the reasons I don't follow Christianity. Personally, I do have a spiritual higher ground, but I do feel that stop saying that we can't do it in our lifetime, because we can. We can achieve what we need to achieve in our lifetime, whether it be a goal to save £5,000 or invest in your own business. And that's almost something coming from my mum, because obviously she's very she will drive motivation into us. But whether it's a small goal or a small lifetime goal or a massive lifetime goal to become like the biggest runner in the world, like I feel like it's gonna get done in you have to say it's gonna get done in your lifetime, otherwise it won't.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the power lies with your generation.
Yeah, it doesn't just, and it's still your generation as well, because
come on,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, you guys have created a platform whereby there's people that are able to speak out on what they're doing, and also you're enhancing people's business mindsets and things along those lines, and you're helping people get through the trauma that they're going through, because it may be a 1-hour conversation, or it may be a conversation that is not very long, and it's only not for the camera, but it's only said by the camera. But as you said, Auntie Kaz, it's counselling. You said there was something that you said earlier, where you said if the teacher offers counselling, and the mum will normally, or the parent will normally say, don't take the counselling, because of the, obviously, people going into the mental institutions, and it's going to be a higher level of, oh, she's schizophrenic, or she's this, or he's that. So although it's a smaller form of counselling, and although you may not see it as, but you're helping people get through it just by having a conversation and just by watching people do what they're doing. So I really love you guys for that.
Oh, thank you, Nye. We love you. And just for those of you who are watching, Nye's mum is Coach Carla, who we work very closely with, and she's part of the Now Chat Show team. And Nyla has been a big part of the Now Chat Show team. This young lady turns up, she shows up, and she gets to work, and she's serious about it. So, Nye, first of all, Carla, wonderful job. We know this already. We love you guys. You know, we love what you're doing, Carla. We love what you've done with the next generation that you're rearing up. But Nyla, we are so proud of you. We are so proud that you have come on and spoken to us. As everyone's saying, oh my God, she's 14, she's 14, she's 14. So,
and this is a true example of what our youths look like. Do you understand what I'm saying? In terms of what, going back to what the media is trying to portray to us all the time.
I know more positive young people than negative, to be honest.
Yeah, all the time.
Say that again, Nyla.
Yeah. And also, we need to accept our identities. Although it's back in descent, and some of us are not directly from African descent, but I feel that we need to accept wearing the kente design and accept the hairstyles that we have, because a lot of children are a lot of girls, I would say, are just instantly into that. A high ponytail and it will be fine. Just slick it up and it will be fine. But whereas if we instill in our children and instill in everyone that it's perfect to wear your kente design, and it's okay, acceptable to have your afro well, and it's acceptable to moisturize your hair, unlike some children that won't do that. It has to happen, because obviously our identity is who we are, and if that gets stripped from us, then we won't have anything.
Come on.
Nyla, thank you so much. We can't wait till we can actually see you again in the physical
virtual hug. Baby.
Listen, Nyla, thank you so much. You stay blessed, you stay great, you stay positive, and you keep pursuing your dreams, okay?
Keep shining that light. Keep shining your light, baby girl.
And I hope everyone stays safe as well. Bye.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye.
Wow. Oh wow. Listen, I didn't want to start crying on the platform in the way, but it was just so powerful. And what was so refreshing is we've got somebody else that wants
we've got somebody else who wants to come on. So I think what was really refreshing was getting the youth's perspective as well, you know, a young black princess like that coming on, you know, and really getting a fresh insight from her, because ultimately we can do so much in our time, but it's her generation next. I think
it's Kwame.
Kwame. Yeah. So next up we have Kwame, who was on the show
a week ago for Now What Is Mental Health.
So Kwame, we're waiting for you to join. I hope you're set up.
Wait, what kind of surprise thing? What kind of I suppose I'm naked or something. That kind of thing.
But did you get to brace yourself?
What kind of surprise thing this?
You requested
yourself.
So you requested it. You requested it, so you're on live.
Hi, good night. Oh wow. Yeah, well, it's good, man. It's good. Really, really good guys, man. Really, really love them, the program and everything. Yeah, really good, really poignant, really. Yeah, I love the brother though, the brother in Tanzania. Yeah. Love his work and love what he's doing, you know what I mean? But I do agree with him tenfold, really. I do think that, yeah, as African Caribbeans here, we have to look to save ourselves, really. And here it's not going to do it, you know. You know my thing. I'm already in transition. I've 1 foot out already, so you know.
So give us a suggestion of what people, and I'm saying people, not just us, but what people can do to break this cycle of global oppression, especially against the black man? What individually can people do?
That's a good question. Well, individually, I do think that in terms of activism, that we have to be more proactive, and I do think that on a wide scale, because there tend to be a minority of us who tend to be very proactive, and I think it has to be on a massive scale in terms of having a movement or having that energy, for things to happen. Because like I said, it's only in dots and places that we have people who do particular things. So I do think that it comes down to, and I guess it comes down to being organized. But in terms of supporting each other is important. In terms of supporting our businesses is important. In terms of being innovative and using what talents that we have to create what we need to create for ourselves is very important, because we have that ability. I think a lot of international collaborations need to take place between ourselves across the diaspora. I really sincerely think that we don't do that enough, because we can learn from each other as well as empower each other. And I'm an advocate for that. I think that we have stories which are similar, but they're also different. And we have ways of empowering each other across the diaspora. And I think a lot more needs to happen where that is concerned. A lot more collaborations internationally needs to happen. So that's what I would say in terms of what we can be doing and how we can create a momentum to create change,
And what would be a simple step just to start? I mean, everything that you've said is valid. Everything that you've said is absolutely what we need to be doing. But if somebody's saying, what could I do tomorrow? What would you suggest that somebody does tomorrow? They wake up tomorrow, they want to do something to make a change. What should they do?
Well, there are organizations and all. So it starts with self. So take, for example, I know of a number of organizations that do a lot of work of empowering ourselves. So I'm gonna deviate a little bit. And so, for example, in terms of empowering men, for example, black men in particular, we have groups like Father to Father, right? Manhood Academy. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of activism. So Manhood Academy, as an example, have already taken young men to Gambia, I think it is, to have that particular experience. So when I'm talking about proactive activism, being a part of something like that, so that's a particular group that would do that type of work, and where people can actually contribute to, and a partnership, and also encourage collaborations. So that is what somebody could do tomorrow. You know what I mean? In terms of if they have a particular talent, or if they have a particular skill, or if they have something that they can contribute. So I'm an advocate for this. So I always say that if you really want to do something internationally, or even here, like I said, a part of Manhood Academy, but if you want to do something internationally in terms of real Pan-Africanism, activism, connect with something that is local and underground. So, for example, they may connect with try to sponsor a child going to school, or sponsor a particular school, or sponsor a clinic. So those are the things that we can do in this part, in the West, in terms of being in the diaspora, because we know those are the things that are important back in the motherland or in the Caribbean, for example. So there are things that people can actually do, even if it may not seem clear. There are things that can happen. It just a matter of reaching out to the right people to learn and be educated on what those are.
I think you're right. It's about learning and educating, and I think let's just pull it right back and just say that read. You're an author, Kwame. Just read. Just start from reading. Whether you're in the diaspora, outside of the diaspora, educate yourself. Pick up a book. It has to start from self. It has to start from self.
Totally.
Because sorry to interject, but even with what Elroy was saying, you need to start teaching yourselves. Do you get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I think what's happening is we're depending on a system that is not designed for us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And even as parents, you need to educate yourself in order for you to educate your children.
That's right. One of the greatest things I always said, my particular experience of when I went to Ghana, even though I was able to do that in terms of my journey, I honestly believe that if each and every one of us were able to do so in terms of an opportunity, I would say to them, do it. Because when I went to the west coast of Africa, that's when I actually saw and connected the dots in terms of my being a black man in the West, and how important it is to know the root of that journey. I think a lot of us have become so consumed with where we are today that we don't look back and see how that relates to where we are today. And I think that part of the jigsaw, that when somebody knows that, when you really know and experience that, then you know who you are in the position that you're in this part of the world. And I think that's so important for many of us.
Kwame, listen, we've got so many other people who want to join us, but we thank you for your contribution so much. I'm going to let you go now.
My bag's packing up. I'm through the door, you know.
Me know say your bag them packed. It's been packed for months. Just through this COVID thing, fling you a little curveball. But I know as soon as you can get on a plane, you're off. And I won't be far behind you. I won't be far behind you. Thank you so much for your contribution. It's powerful and meaningful as always. Yeah.
Thank you, Kwame.
Bye.
Okay, so who is next? Who wants to join?
Oh, who wants to? But we're gonna join. That's a request.
So we're just going to see who wants to join us. We've got Rob up next who wants to join the live. Remember, guys, we are talking about the recent events in the US and we want to come up with real and tangible solutions.
We're trying not to eat up too much time, but from my perspective, right, we are
mash
up.
Good evening, Rob. Good evening. Just tell us who you are and just a little bit about what you do.
Okay, I won't stay too long on that, but basically I'm Rob. I work in technology. I deliver solutions. I deliver technology in the Caribbean. I was in the UK, got fed up, left 15 years ago, spent 10 years in the Caribbean, come back, been back 5 years, and I've been on the full journey from road to working with senior governments, advising the government in the Caribbean, etc. So I know all about all the different elements that the black man faces in the UK. So I had to go on a journey to understand a lot of things, the why, and keep asking myself why. And through doing that, I think I got to a point where we need to heal. We are a traumatized culture. And a lot of us are so unaware of a lot of the behaviors we adopt are based on how traumatized we really are. So you have a lot of people having a lot of discussions about we need to buy and we need to do business and economics and da-da-da. We're too traumatized to do it. Whether you're Puff Daddy or with riches or Oprah, they carry the trauma. Michael Jordan, it's not about the money. We need to heal the trauma to then progress onto these other things. But while we do them other things while we're an unstable culture, it won't work. That's what everything the struggle. So stepping back, how? Right, two things to me, responsibility and boundaries. We have to learn about those concepts and what they mean. So one of the key things for me, responsibility is health, our physical and our mental health. So, we're frustrated. So sometimes we are loud. Sometimes we are aggressive. Let's own it. But what it does, it raises our blood pressure. It makes us have high stress situations when we're in the family home, etc. So we have to learn what these things are and deal with them. So yes, some said trauma is real. Yes, because we don't suffer from PTSD. We suffer from complex PTSD, which is intergenerational. PTSD is one event, one trauma, but we have so many layers of trauma. Until we peel those things back and resolve some of them, we are not going to progress as we wish. We just have defense mechanism on top of defense mechanism. So in intergenerational trauma, they speak about addiction, self-harm, hypervigilance. As we know, every black man on road is hypervigilant. That is trauma behavior. Avoidance. None of us avoid situations, avoid things. Avoidance is another defense mechanism. Self-sabotage, where we condemn each other, condemn self. So we're working from a relationship that is pure trauma.
Right, so Rob, we're going to stop you there for one moment, guys. We're going to start the live again because we've only got literally 16 seconds remaining. So Rob, please don't go away. Join us again. Thanks.
All right.